What are the biggest dangers that the Duke Blue Devils can present to the Miami Hurricanes on Saturday?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'll see if our 8-0 fifth-ranked Miami Hurricanes can keep it rolling when a familiar face comes to town in Manny Diaz. Hurricanes and Duke Blue Devils. And guys, we'll have you caught up before the game and then, of course, after the game, because we've got the postcast king is with us, Jim Greashopper, a.k.a. Grease, who's going to be on right after that Miami versus Duke game, which, Grease, we hope is another celebration. Miami, we've had 8 successful postcasts this year after W's. Do you think this one's going to go the same way?
Well, you have to, right? I mean, you're rolling right now. And the thing about the Miami-Duke game, and we'll get to Duke in a minute, but you're rolling. And you had those 3 weeks, Alex. You had those. It wasn't 3 weeks. It was 3 games, right? And there was a bye in there, but you had those scares, and you had the Virginia Tech game and the Cal game, right? Nail biters all the way down to the end, and then the Louisville game, and you didn't know what was going to happen going back and forth with that team, which, by the way, I think Louisville's a little better than people think, and I think the ACC is a lot better than what people thought early in the year, and as the season goes on, we're seeing it more and more. A couple other big games in the conference this weekend, for example, looking forward to that. But we're talking about the Canes and Duke. Miami, about a 20.5, 21-point favorite. It's a typical game where you look at it and you say it could be a slip game, right? Because Duke is not a bad team. Duke is not a bad team at all, and we know they have a smart coach in Manny Diaz. Don't laugh at me, Canes fans. You know what I'm saying? But they fired him in 2021. Miami did, and Diaz was 21-15 at Miami, and Mario Cristobal is 20-13. Not much of a difference there at all. But I think when you stop Star Thomas, he's got a great name. I'd say it again. Like how many times?
What a name.
If you're calling those games and you're going, hey, you're not just shortening that to Thomas. Like you always say the star part. So he's the workhorse, man. He's the workhorse, and he's the one who breaks off the big runs. He's the one scoring the touchdowns. He's got 5 of the team's 8 rushing touchdowns. And Miami, it's just the offense. If they get into a shootout, Duke's going to lose by 20. If they don't get into a shootout, Duke's going to lose by 20. And really for Miami, it could be a 30 or 40-point win. But I'll wrap it up with this, Alex. That Florida State win for Miami, as bad as Florida State's been this year and their offense just looked terrible, it was nice to get that blowout win in the rivalry game. And also, if you notice, and this might actually help Miami later, if Florida can somehow upset Georgia, they're playing a lot better. If you've watched Florida lately, they're a completely different team. If they can pull this off, and then you have Ohio State and Penn State wins that game, or whoever wins that game, Miami could be number 3 in the country by the end of the weekend, Alex. And more than that, more importantly, Florida beats Georgia, gets a couple more big wins. Then if Miami, God forbid, ends up with a loss, that Florida win starts looking a lot better.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right on that. In the case of Duke, when I look at what Miami needs to do offensively, as they've done a good job of, Greece, the past couple of weeks, keep the turnovers down. No turnovers against Florida State. You had, just one against Louisville the prior week. The Duke Blue Devils, there's a lot to like about their defense, but they're also number 3 in the nation in turnover margin. Now, here's the weird thing about it. They haven't overall taken advantage of their turnovers. I mean, if you watch that horror show of a game last week where Duke lost in overtime to SMU, first time in 15 years a team lost a game after going +6 in the turnover margin. But don't expect that to happen again. Miami cannot go -6 or -3 in the turnover margin this week. Take care of the football. Take care of your business.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that's been a problem. Duke, you mentioned that's the key for Duke is forcing turnovers week in and week out. That's what they do. They're opportunistic. They've actually, Duke has not been bad this year. They're not a bad team. So this is not your older brother's Duke Blue Devil team, So for Miami, you stop Star Thomas, and Murphy can make some plays. Murphy can make some plays. But I think Cam Ward's human, right? He had a couple of bad turnovers, especially in the Virginia Tech and the Cal games, and Louisville, the overturn, and that was the right call. But against Florida State, Cam Ward didn't throw a touchdown pass. Cam Ward had the game where you thought, okay, Cam Ward's going to have a game this year where the numbers aren't huge. He was still super efficient. He was still incredible at leading the offense. But what happened, and you've seen it over the 3 games before that, every single week they started playing these close games, and we really saw it against Louisville. Mario Cristobal, when he went for it on that 4th down in his own territory, I still remember it's on your own 34. It's 4th and 1. It's the 3rd quarter. They had just scored twice in a row wrapped around your fumble, right? Everything's against you. The crowd screaming. He goes for it. They make it. That moment flipped a switch for the run game, and they came out after that play and dominated the rest of that game against Louisville. They came out after that game and dominated the entire game against Florida State. So what they're doing right now with Martinez, looking like the Martinez we thought we were getting when he came here, and Fletcher, who was inspired last week after the death of his father, shout out Mark Fletcher Sr., RIP, but the running game with the offensive line after that 4th down, they are nasty, they are mean, and they feel like they can dominate anybody. So I believe now playing off that run game with Cam Ward, and we know he can do it all by himself with the passing game, but it's become that much more deadly, and I think you're going to see a big-time rushing performance from Miami this week.
What have you made of not only and like you mentioned it, like the numbers, he still had an efficient game last week. Miami won the game a different way. But in terms of Cam's approach to the season, I continue to be so impressed by how focused he is and how humble he is. He talks about how he plays angry because he hasn't forgotten that when he was coming out of high school, he had one offer from Incarnate Word, where he started his career. And then you look at a guy who was essentially, a 0-star recruit. Like, he didn't have stars coming out of high school. He goes from Incarnate Word, where he was putting up video game numbers, then put up video game numbers at Washington State. He's putting up, Heisman finalist type of numbers at Miami, and he's led his team to 8-0. I love the chip on his shoulder that he continues to play with, but I also love that he puts the team first, Grease, with everything. Now Miami on his behalf has, and they put out a pretty cool video this week, the Except for One promotion. Like Miami is promoting his Heisman candidacy, but Ward as an individual he is not interested in promoting himself for an individual award. Like, he just wants his team to keep winning and keep doing whatever he can to keep that loss column empty.
Yeah, and I really think that's going to translate very well to the NFL. When you're looking at the rookie quarterbacks now, I think Cam Ward's going to develop further. And you look at, and you mentioned Incarnate Word, right? And you look at his path to anybody out there, anyone watching who's an underdog. And I don't want to get on the soapbox here, but I have to, Alex, because no matter what, where you start's not where you finish. Just follow Cam Ward's career path, and it is unbelievably inspiring to see what he has taken from one offer from that school that nobody even knows what it is, to do what he's done step by step, each step of the way, to become such an elite player out on the West Coast, and then to come to Miami for his last year. And I'll just say this about Cam. Nobody, and I don't even know if he did. I wonder if you had him in a private moment and you were tight with him like that, what he would say. But did anybody, we knew we were getting a good one. And we thought if he had a great year, it could be really special. But none of us saw this coming, man. None of us saw number 1 in the country. None of us saw Heisman frontrunner. None of us saw this coming from a guy who could potentially be a 10, 12, 15-year starter in the NFL. And not only that, he made quarterback you actually quarterback you again, from the days of Kelly and Kozar and Testaverde and a little bit of Ken Dorsey, who was the luckiest quarterback in the history of the world, maybe, with all that talent around him. But Cam Ward, I would say, is the best. This is the best season any Miami quarterback's ever had.
Yeah. I mean, you just look at the numbers that Ward is putting up, and pretty much everything is above his career averages at his previous spots. He's completing 68% of his passes, which is a career best for him if he can keep this pace up. He's at 68% on the year. His previous best was 66.6% last year at Washington State. He's at 2,746 yards, which he's on track to break his career high of over 3,700 yards last year. He's got 24 touchdowns. His previous high for an FBS team was Washington State last year with 25. So he's going to shatter that. I don't know if he's going to reach the 47 touchdowns he threw at Incarnate Word his second year, but as far as FBS Power 4, he's going to shatter it. He's only got 5 interceptions, so the ratio has been very good, 24-5. And he's having a tremendous season. I want to talk a little bit when we come back about how I have given my prediction this week. I will double down on it, but I'll see what Greece thinks as far as how this game is going to end on Saturday with the Manny Diaz return. Manny Diaz versus Mario Cristobal. It's the Cafecito Bowl this weekend because this is, I believe, the first time we've had 2 Cuban-American head coaches ever going head-to-head. So we're making history this weekend as well. You guys want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. I'm certainly not done with 5 Hour Energy. Our friends at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created the Stan the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot made just for super fans like us, the fans who are first in the parking lot and who are last to leave. We see you. You know what else gave me a bit of fan fuel this past week? Getting that win against Florida State, watching Damian Martinez rumble his way to 148 yards and 2 touchdowns. Folks, 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, hopefully the Canes, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're preparing for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stan the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help you keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com. Shop nationwide. Guys, we are also proudly brought to you by FanDuel. From Fan Fuel to FanDuel. And folks, you look at Miami. Big number this week. Hurricanes favored by 20.5 points against the Duke Blue Devils. Over under 54.5. And guys, you can get ready to tackle the NFL action as well with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We got our man Grease, the postcast king, with us. He's going to be on right after the game. Locked On Canes postcast. Grease is going to be hosting that. All right, so Grease, if you can look into your crystal ball for the future, what final score do you think you're going to be talking about right after Duke at Miami?
Man, and Duke's lost 2 out of 3. They started off, believe it or not, 5-0. They're undefeated, and they had some good games in there. Lost to Georgia Tech, lost to SMU, had a 1 touchdown win over Florida State. And by the way, how about this weekend, Alex, for the ACC? Louisville and Clemson, big game. Pittsburgh and SMU, 2 teams in the top 20. Clemson at 11, Miami at 5. Look, Virginia Tech and Syracuse at 5-3 and 5-2. So I just want to mention that as we see the ACC gradually looking better and better and better in the eyes of the nation. But for this game with Miami and Duke, I think it's simple. You avoid the turnover. You pound the ball down their throats. I love how efficient Cam Ward was and how he proved that no matter what style of game we play, he has the ability to win it and lead the team in the best possible way. So if it's the running game, it's the running game. If it's the passing game, it's the passing game. But either way, I like that range. What was he, 23 out of 29 or something like that? And he knows that he can go 38 out of 46 if he needs to and throw 5 touchdowns. So for Duke, they're going to have to really be careful on how opportunistic they try to be to create those turnovers. It's their only shot to win, and they know that. They have to create turnovers. They have to create big plays. But Miami's going to roll in this game. I can't see – I'm not going shutout because I do like Duke's offense a little bit. I'm going to go – Miami's going to win this game. They're going to get out of that 30s. You got to score in the 40s every game from now on. So I'm going to go 44-13 Miami. I'm going to write that down.
Like it. See, my pick, I've been riding with this all week. I like to go a little conservative. I'm going 34-20 Miami. I hope they score in the 40s. Heck, I hope they score in the 50s. I wish they'd scored in the 50s against Florida State. And one of the reasons why I'm going no cover, I like to look at the trends, Grease, and pretty much all of Duke's games have been close outside of, against FCS Middle Tennessee, where they won 45-17, and against Elon where they won 26-3. You kind of throw those games out. But like all their games against Power 4 opposition, except for their loss to Georgia Tech by 10 points, all the rest of their games have been within a score, win or lose. So they've kept most of their games close. You mentioned they beat Florida State by a touchdown. They lost to SMU by a point in overtime. They beat North Carolina by a point. They beat UConn by 5 points. They beat Northwestern in double overtime by 6 points. So most of their games have been close. So I'm going to tread on that side of it just to be a little cautious heading into this one. But I think if Miami can keep the turnovers clean and get the running game going against what's not been a great rushing defense by Duke, they're 88th in the country. I think we could hopefully trend into more of your final score prediction. But let the people know what else they can expect on the Locked On Canes postcast.
Well, we're going to be talking about how the Hurricanes shut down Malik Murphy and Star Thomas. We're going to be talking about how Cam Ward led the offense to another flawlessly brilliant performance, because he has had those this year. But it's been a while. It's been a while since Cam Ward and the Hurricanes offense have played a flawless game. But as I mentioned, the offensive line with the chip on his shoulder, with Martinez, with Fletcher, with the change of pace guys we have, and then the offense getting the ball to all those receivers, I really don't see Duke as anything more than a speed bump in this game, Alex. And we're going to talk all about that at the end with the postcast. And by the way, Dolphins in a must-win at 2-5 against the first-place Bills, who are 6-2 on the road in Buffalo on Sunday as well. That's a tough one.
I would argue that their last loss was also a must-win, just in terms of not going 2-5. But I guess here we are.
Everything's a must-win now.
And like he not only does he does postcasts for the Miami team, so you're going to hear him after the Dolphins game as well. You'll hear him after Miami against Duke. He's Jim Greasehopper, aka Grease. Follow him at Cage Side Grease on X. And folks, it's all about that and we'll talk to everybody next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.